So this is a two-part poem. I took who I consider to be 36 of the most influential Black Americans and wrote a poem about them. Part one is a rapid fire style homage to 33 of them. And part two is mostly about escaped slaves John Andrew Jackson and Josiah Henson, who inspired Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. The ending is basically like a summary of Black life throughout American history. So, American Heroes, Part 1. King, Rosa, Randolph, Maya. These were inspired life givers who loved spitting words fueled with fire. Douglas, Chisholm, Booker, Jackie. They shattered mass glass ceilings. These were no slacking lackeys. Bessie, Baldwin, Tubman, Rustin, Pilot, Writer, Railroad, Hustlin, Wheatley, Wells, Carver, Hughes, poet, journalist, farmer, and the author of The Weary Blues. Allen, Sadie, Thurgood, Ashe. That's pastor, doctor, lawyer, activist, all forgotten in a flash. Jordan, Woods, Brown, Serena, goat, legend, leader, ballerina. Newton was a Panther. Bolin was a judge. Hamer made waves in Mississippi while Daisy Bates got the Little Rock Nine in the club. Owens, Harper, Evers, and Sojourner Truth. All of them should be taught about in schools to our youth, but they're not. So let me get loose and produce some truth not introduced to the youth in schools. Otabanga was of the Booty tribe. He was bought, sold, and traded, cuffed and caged, laughed at, trapped in a human zoo. A beautiful black youth kept on display by the slave trade gang, staged next to an orangutan, subdued in an attempt to prove that evolution's true. American Heroes, Part 2. I hope these words strike batches of matches under the asses of you passionate few. You see, they're these bastards that happen to ration a fraction of news. These fascists, they fashion the proof. They wax with attractive distractions. These massive attacks got you slacked and aloof. And these rascals are classless. And their actions continue to savagely hassle and ravage the masses and loot, while our reactions to passively pass on living lavishly in truth. So let me paint you all a picture that does not lack contrast and hue. Our president, Andrew Jackson, once walked proudly past his pastor's pew on his way to roll call to count his slaves found crowned in mange, found bound in graves, and abused. And they were snatched in disdain, stashed and detained, dispatched into pain, then used. And no slack remained in those straps and chains. Men snapped with canes and they bruised. But the good news is that one with the same name got away. Now, his trappers ran fast, but he ran faster through the grass of the pasture from the grasp of doom till he heard the sounds of the hounds that were tasked to track him soon. So he saddled up, ran laps around those cats on horseback till he was way past his master's view. No white flag wave that was cut and fashioned from the mast of a transatlantic cruise. So the day before that was the last time he bowed and kissed his master's shoes. Now, if he was caught, you know that the whip would have snapped and cracked his back. They would have harassed him or grabbed a noose, went back to their roots. Like Kunta, they would have given him a lash or two. They would have broke both those caps, dragged him out back to blast him through, but in a flash he dashed to Uncle Tom's cabin without a map with clues. Check Harriet Beecher Stowe, 1852. Now, some of these blacks were booed, others were black and blue, black and bruised. Some were whacked by some fat rats in hoods and masks. This is flat out fact and true. And if you were a right white defending blacks, the masses would have gasped, then laughed at you because they had the same evil in them that amassed, then gassed the Jews. Some were dragged through the woods. They were slashed and gashed in feuds, or they were executed by those of the law who were badged in blue. Now, these oppressors are crass, and they just rehash their tactics into ways that are new. Like, it's wartime at noon, better go snatch, grab, and draft a few, throw them on the front lines, and offer them on the altar to the almighty flag. Red, white, blue. More like dead quite soon. Now, I tried to match and mash up the passion of the few that I wrote about here, but I just ended up being mad, sad, and blue. These are American heroes, tried and true. For freedom, they were martyred. And some of these martyrs were tarred and feathered, scarred and tethered. In this life, they were far from heaven, and their repressors turned them into label jars, marred and full of leaven. So they embarked on marches that brought them blessings. They taught some lessons because some of us were dark and parched in our hearts, thinking that they were our possession. I just wanted to drop some bars and remarks from the heart that were sharp and clear. I know that this art was hard to hear, and that's because the darkest parts are past us, but they're not far from near. So remember that. Remember them, and may God bless their souls.